There's a truth that no one talks about in the world of spirituality. It's not beautiful. It's not marketable. It doesn't come with white robes, soft music, or perfectly curated Instagram posts. It's raw. It's brutal. It's the truth of what it means to be a dark, chosen one, not the light worker version that always smiles, forgives, and floats above the chaos. I'm talking about the ones like us, the ones who were marked by pain early, who never fit in, who carry a rage they didn't create, and who were forced to walk through hell before they could even pronounce the word healing. You didn't choose this path. That's the first painful truth. It chose you. Maybe you remember the first time you realized you were different. Not better, not worse, just different. You could see things others couldn't. Feel things more deeply than anyone around you. You knew when someone was lying, even if they smiled. You could feel the energy in rooms before anyone said a word. And while that might sound like a gift now, back then it felt like a curse, because no one explained it to you. No one told you that you were wired spiritually different, so you internalized your sensitivity as weakness. You thought something was wrong with you. But that pain, that isolation, that hyper-awareness, it was the mark, the invisible fingerprint of something ancient, something divine, something cosmic. You were never meant to be like them. You were never meant to follow the rules they gave you. You were born to break them, to expose the illusions, to burn away the masks, to walk into the darkest places of this world and not just survive but bring revelation. But before you can do that for others, you have to do it for yourself. And that's where the second painful truth comes in. Awakening for a dark chosen one is violent. It doesn't come with gentle nudges. It comes with collapse, with betrayal, with losing everything you thought defined you. For most of us, the awakening didn't come in a meditation retreat. It came in a breakdown, a breakup, a death, a betrayal so deep it shattered the false self we had built just to survive. And in that shattering, something else emerged, something deeper, something unseen. But the world didn't celebrate it. The world punished it. Because when you start waking up with power, you become dangerous to systems built on sleep. Have you ever felt like your presence alone makes people uncomfortable? Like you don't even have to say anything and they already feel exposed? That's not your imagination. That's your energy. Because when a dark, chosen one walks into a room, they bring truth with them. Not the kind that comforts, the kind that confronts. Your very existence challenges people's illusions. And it's not because you're trying to. It's because the fire you've walked through has made you a mirror, and most people are terrified of their reflection.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This leads us into the third painful truth. You will often be misunderstood, even by those who claim to be spiritual, especially by them. Because most spiritual spaces are built on bypassing, on love and light narratives that deny the reality of shadow work. They'll tell you to just forgive, without ever acknowledging the destruction you had to survive. They'll tell you to raise your vibration, while ignoring the fact that your darkness is your vibration. Not because you're negative, but because you're real. And realness doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it looks like rage. Sometimes it looks like grief. Sometimes it looks like silence so loud it shakes the ancestors awake. The fourth truth is perhaps the most isolating. You will often walk alone, even in a crowd, because your path is carved in shadow. You will go through initiations no one sees, nights where you question your sanity, days where nothing makes sense except the voice inside you telling you to keep going. You'll try to explain it to others, but they won't get it. Not because they don't care, but because they haven't been chosen for this path. And that's where the loneliness of purpose hits. Not the kind where you lack people, but the kind where you lack mirrors. You crave someone who understands the weight you carry, the visions you see, the rage that doesn't come from ego, but from soul memory. Let me ask you something that only someone like you will understand. Have you ever looked at the world and just known that something is terribly off? Like you can feel the lies vibrating beneath the surface of culture, religion, media, even family. That knowing doesn't make life easier. It makes it heavier, because once you see, you can't unsee. And that leads us to the fifth painful truth: ignorance will never again be an option for you. You don't get to go back. You don't get to numb out. You don't get to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. Your soul made a contract to be awake, and that contract is binding. But here's the paradox. The more awake you become, the more pain you feel, not because you're broken, but because your heart is open. You feel the collective like it's your own body. You grieve for people you've never met. You cry for timelines that never happened. You rage for children you'll never know. That's not madness. That's remembrance. You're not just one human, you're an echo of thousands. And your soul remembers what this world lost. That's why you can't tolerate injustice. That's why betrayal cuts you deeper than most. That's why your standards are high, not because you're arrogant, but because your spirit remembers what sacred feels like. The sixth truth is brutal. You will be attacked for standing in your truth, not by enemies, but by those closest to you, family, friends, lovers. Not because they're evil, but because your truth threatens their illusion. When you decide to stop playing small, to stop dimming, to stop apologizing for your power, others will project their fear onto you. They'll call you arrogant, angry, intense, crazy. And part of you will want to shrink again just to keep the peace. But chosen ones aren't here to keep the peace. We're here to reveal the war underneath the surface and to transmute it. And yet, the final truth for now, the seventh and most important, is this. Your pain is not punishment, it's preparation. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every sleepless night has been forging you, carving you into a vessel that can hold truth, fire, vision, and power without being consumed. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to be legendary. But legends are not born in comfort. They are born in crucibles. And you, my fellow dark chosen one, have been walking through fire your entire life, not to be burned, but to become the flame itself. There's a moment all of us face on this path, a moment when the fire gets so hot, so intense, so unrelenting that we're sure it's going to destroy us. And maybe, in a way, it does. But not in the way we fear. It doesn't kill the true self. It burns away everything that isn't us, everything we've been forced to become just to survive in a world that was never built for someone like us. If you've ever felt like you were dying inside, like everything you thought you were was falling apart, you weren't breaking down, you were breaking open. That's what the fire does. It strips you. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It comes like a storm, a spiritual combustion that incinerates your illusions. And it hurts. God, it hurts because we've spent years, sometimes lifetimes, building identities that kept us safe. The achiever, the peacemaker, the rebel, the loner, the caretaker, roles we performed so well that we forgot they were masks. And then the fire comes, and suddenly none of those roles work anymore. The mask melts. What's left is raw, tender, unknown. And that's when the fear sets in. Who am I without the roles? Who am I without the armor? But here's where the transformation begins, because the fire shows you what's real. It reveals the parts of you that can't be burned, the parts that are eternal. You discover an essence that was always there, hidden under the performance, a voice that doesn't speak to please, a power that doesn't need validation, a knowing that doesn't come from books or teachers, but from remembrance. You begin to feel yourself in a way that's not logical but undeniable. And once you touch that self, even for a moment, you can't go back. You can't unknow your own divinity. But here's the part no one tells you. This rebirth doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence, with people walking away, with losing relationships that were built on the version of you that no longer exists. That's the cost of the fire. It purifies your life, not just your soul. And that purification can feel like punishment if you don't understand what's happening. Have you ever looked around and realized that the more you grow, the more isolated you become? That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're shedding everything that can't walk with you into the next level of your soul's evolution. This is not the path of comfort. This is the path of consecration. And chosen ones, especially the dark ones, don't get to skip the fire. We are forged in it. We are shaped by it. And the reason our fire is hotter than others isn't because we're cursed, it's because we're being prepared. Prepared to hold a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from reading, but from bleeding. Prepared to speak truths that others are too afraid to even whisper. Prepared to carry energy that can shift entire rooms, timelines, realities. But here's the thing. You can't carry that kind of power if you're still afraid of being misunderstood. The fire trains you to let go of needing to be liked. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that still crave approval. Because as long as you're seeking permission, you're not walking in purpose. The fire doesn't just reveal who you are, it strips away who you aren't so that what remains is unshakable. And once you reach that place where your truth is louder than your fear, you become unstoppable. Have you felt that shift? That moment when you no longer needed the world to see you a certain way? When you stopped explaining yourself? When you started choosing peace over performance? That's the moment the fire finished its first round. But the process doesn't end there. It deepens, because with each new version of you there's another layer to burn, another illusion to dissolve, another prison to escape. But something changes with time. You stop fearing the fire. You start welcoming it. You begin to trust it like an old friend, because you realize that every time it comes, it leaves you more you than before, more rooted, more clear, more powerful. And that's when the next transformation begins, not just of self, but of service. Because once you've survived the fire, you become the fire. You stop walking into rooms and shrinking. You stop hiding your gifts. You stop apologizing for your depth. You start speaking from soul. You start moving from intuition. You start leading not with ego, but with frequency. And people feel it. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. Because what you carry isn't just knowledge, it's embodiment. You've lived it. You've died and come back to life. You've faced your own shadow and chosen love every time. That makes you rare. That makes you necessary. Let me ask you something that will require total honesty. What are you still afraid to lose if you fully step into who you are? What are you still protecting that was never meant to survive the fire? And can you let it go, even if it means walking alone for a while? Because here's the truth. The fire doesn't destroy you. It destroys your limitations. And in doing so, it gives you access to something the world desperately needs: unfiltered authenticity. Imagine what would shift if more people stopped performing and started being. If more people stopped chasing healing as an identity and started living as medicine. That's what dark chosen ones are here to do. Not to fit in, but to ignite. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be true. And truth doesn't need polish. It needs power. The kind of power that comes only from walking through the fire and refusing to forget who you are on the other side. There comes a point on the path where you realize that the world isn't just indifferent to your truth, it's afraid of it. Not because your truth is violent or cruel, but because it's so honest that it reveals the lies everyone else has learned to live with. And when you carry that kind of energy, people don't always meet you with admiration, they meet you with resistance. Suspicion, projection. They'll say you're too intense, too much, too deep, or too dark. But what they really mean is, you make me feel things I've buried, and I don't know how to face them, so I'll blame you instead. That's the burden of a dark chosen one. You don't just walk into a room, you disturb it. Not because you're trying to, but because your presence carries codes, carries history, carries soul memory. You are a living trigger to those who are committed to forgetting themselves. And that alone can be lonely, because while others are celebrated for fitting in, you're often punished for standing out. Even your silence can be threatening. Even your stillness can feel like confrontation. That's what happens when your energy is rooted in truth. It becomes radioactive to illusions. But here's the sacred paradox. Even when the world fears you, your soul doesn't care. It refuses to be silenced. It refuses to shrink. And that's where your power lies, not in being accepted, but in being authentic. You were not sent here to be digestible. You were sent here to be disruptive, to break cycles, to speak what others are too scared to name, to walk into family systems, relationships, communities, cultures, and say, "This ends with me." But let's be real. That kind of mission doesn't come without casualties. You will lose people. You will be cast out. You will be labeled the villain simply because you refuse to play the victim. You will be called selfish for choosing boundaries. You will be called dramatic for naming abuse. You will be called arrogant for not bowing to false authority. And every time that happens, a part of you will be tempted to go quiet again, to shrink, to disappear. But you can't, not anymore. Because your soul didn't come this far to be liked, it came to lead. Have you ever felt that strange ache in your chest after telling the truth? That aftertaste of loneliness, even when you know you did the right thing? That's the echo of your old self dying. The part of you that once believed love had to be earned through betrayal of self. The part that thought belonging was more important than becoming. Every truth you speak peels off another layer of that illusion, and as it falls away, you get clearer, sharper, brighter, not in the soft, fluffy way people like to imagine light, but in the way a blade shines when it's forged in fire. You become dangerous, not because you harm, but because you heal. And healing, real healing, is threatening to those who benefit from dysfunction. That's why the world fears you. That's why they try to silence you. Because you don't just break chains, you make others see the chains they're still wearing. And when people aren't ready to be free, they'll call the one who holds the key a threat. But you don't stop. You can't stop, because your soul carries a voice that is older than your wounds. A voice that's been silenced in other lifetimes, buried under fear, burned at stakes, drowned in shame, but not this time. This time you remember. This time you rise. This time you speak. And every word you say that comes from truth, no matter how shaky, no matter how raw, is a spell of liberation. Not just for you, but for everyone who hears it and recognizes a piece of themselves inside it. So let me ask you something that could change everything. Who would you be if you stopped censoring your soul? What would your life look like if you stopped trying to make your truth palatable to people who benefit from your silence? How much longer will you betray your own knowing just to be tolerated by a world that fears your authenticity? Because here's the brutal but liberating truth. Not everyone is meant to understand you. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. And that's okay. The soul doesn't need a crowd. It needs clarity. It needs alignment. It needs courage. And courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to be ruled by it. When your soul is louder than your fear, you become a force, a movement, a revolution in human form. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And in a world built on performance, being real is the rarest and most rebellious act of all. So walk on, even if you walk alone. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Stand tall, even when your knees shake. Because every time you choose authenticity over approval, you light a fire in someone else who's been hiding in the dark, waiting for permission to be themselves. You are that permission. There's a terrifying beauty in being a dark, chosen one. Not because we're better, not because we're special in the way ego might want to believe, but because we've been given a task few are willing to accept. We are the mirror. And people don't run from us because of our flaws, they run because we reflect the parts of themselves they've buried, denied, or refused to face. Our shadow holds up a torch to their repression. Our truth exposes their silence. Our depth reminds them of how shallow they've become, and that makes us dangerous. Not to their bodies, but to their illusions. Have you felt that? The way someone's energy shifts around you, even when you've said nothing. The way they suddenly feel defensive, or off, or distant. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because your very presence reminds them of what they've abandoned within themselves. You carry your wounds like sacred tattoos, and it makes people uncomfortable not because you're broken, but because they've spent their entire lives pretending they aren't. And in a world addicted to pretending, being honest is radical. But it gets deeper, because what most people don't understand is that your shadow isn't a curse. It's the medicine. Your shadow is where your soul learned to survive. It's where your gifts were forged. It's where your empathy was born. And when you own it fully, without shame, you become the kind of healer that doesn't just soothe, you awaken. You remind people that healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. And wholeness includes the dark. That's the difference between us and the spiritual systems that try to bypass the pain. We don't run from the dark, we listen to it. We sit in it. We speak from it. And that's why our medicine is so potent. Because it's not theoretical. It's lived. It's real. It's been tested in fire, in grief, in rage, in silence. You can't fake that kind of depth, and you can't teach it without embodying it. But that embodiment comes at a cost. Because when you begin to live as the mirror, people will project onto you everything they refuse to see in themselves. Their jealousy, their guilt, their shame, their smallness. And if you're not careful, you'll start to internalize their projections as truth. You'll start to question your worth. You'll start to think, maybe I really am too much. But let me tell you something you need to remember in your bones. You're not too much. You are just in a world that has settled for too little. You are not too intense. You are awake. You are not too dark. You are honest. You are not too emotional. You are alive. And the world needs more of that, not less. The world needs more people who cry when it hurts, who rage when there's injustice, who speak when there's silence, who shine even when they're terrified. People who've made peace with their shadows and now offer that peace to others, not by preaching, but by being. So here's the final truth, the truth that wraps all others inside it. Your shadow isn't meant to be erased. It's meant to be integrated. Because when you integrate the shadow, you become whole. And wholeness isn't just healing, it's revolutionary. In a world built on separation, to be whole is to be free. And when you're free, you don't just break your own chains, you become the key for others. But not everyone is ready for that kind of key. Some people are still in love with their cages. Some people aren't ready to see, and that's okay. You're not here to force healing. You're here to embody it, to walk as the medicine, to be the mirror, to live so truthfully that your life becomes a lighthouse for anyone brave enough to wake up. So the next time someone recoils from your intensity, ask yourself, what truth did my energy just reflect that they weren't ready to see? And then release them. Bless them. Keep walking. Because you're not here to be liked. You're here to be legendary. Not through ego, through embodiment, through your shadow, through your truth, through your wholeness. You are the mirror. You are the medicine. You are the fire. And you are exactly who this world has been waiting for.